Times Square, once a dramatic symbol of what the Big Apple stood for: excitement, sophistication, and excellence. Well, the old girl ain't what she used to be. Remember Broadway Joe and the Jets? Boozer, Biggs, Snell, Sample, Weave Eubank, and Super Bowl III. The Jets haven't had a winning season in the last 8 years, but they've cleaned house here in New York, and they're starting over. Hi, I'm Al Minner. The bell rang for real yesterday when the Dolphins played the Jets at Shea Stadium, just across the East River. You don't have to take the Staten Island ferry to get to Shea. It's a nice ride. And besides, you can talk football anywhere. George Usher covers the Jets for the Long Island Newsday. George, it's a whole new ball game here in town. New regime. Phil Island passed away. Al Ward is gone. Jim Kinzel is the new boss. And Walt Michaels is the coach. Before we get into that, what with the Jets playing Miami tomorrow, I kind of envy you. You've covered this ball club ever since Namath's second year here, and they had those 3 good years. They were 8-5, they won the Super Bowl, and then they almost won the American Conference and lost to Kansas City, and then the bottom fell out. You've seen a lot of amazing things. It's certainly an intriguing, interesting ball club, what with Namath throwing and everything. You kind of run down the history for me. I think the fans really enjoy that type of thing.
Well, I think what happened to the Jets is that they depended on Namath too much. They depended on his arm, his charisma, everything about Namath. And they lost this sight of the other ball players and what they should build with. They didn't draft well. And all of a sudden, they just didn't have it anymore. And it was too late. And now they're trying to get that back.
You know, I remember in the Super Bowl with Snell and Boozer, and Namath was so great against Baltimore down in Miami. But they ran well. They ran that year, and they mixed. Yeah. But after that, did the Jets lose control of Namath?
No, I don't think so. The Jets were a passing team because that's what Namath did best, and that's what Weave Eubank believed in. He lived with the pass. You know, Johnny Unitas, the whole thing in Baltimore. And they were a passing team. And when they played the Baltimore in the Super Bowl, they realized they could run on them, and they surprised them with a run. And if you remember, they did try to throw deep. They tried to throw to Don Maynard. It was a fly pattern on the right side. I remember today, just as like yesterday, like it was then.
Right.
And he missed it by inches, and he had a pulled thigh muscle in that game. And if he didn't have the pull, he would have caught that pass. Now, that set the pattern for the game. After that, Baltimore had to worry about the long pass, and they played their defensive backs deep. They played deep to stop the long pass because of that one pass. And then Namath went underneath. He ran, he threw short.
Threw underneath the zone.
Underneath the zone, right. And it just set the pattern for the game. And then he continued with that, and he stuck with it. Namath surprised me that game because he was patient. He loves to throw deep. And that's been the Jets' reputation over the years.
Well, that's the funny thing. And they won the Super Bowl doing the right thing as far as the ball control. Yeah. They controlled.
They were almost forced into it by Baltimore. That's the ironic thing about it.
But the Jets couldn't win with Namath the last 5 or 6 years.
I think Joe believed so much in his passing game that he just believed he could do it. And I think he just took too much on himself.
I see.
He went away from the basics of sound, fundamental football.
You know, you mentioned Richard Todd. Now that brings us to the future, to the now. At tomorrow's ball game, Todd, I read a quote in today's paper. I can't recall the paper. So many of them are on strike and all. But I read that Todd's quote was, I wish I could throw every down. It reminds me of the same thing that's been happening in the past years with the Jets. They still want to throw. Even though you have Powell, one offensive lineman, a big, huge guy, and you've got this Ward from Ohio State.
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? The Jets have probably the best trio of receivers in pro football. Wesley Walker, who is a 4.3 and a 40, which is outstanding speed.
Oh, just incomprehensible.
And not only that, he has great moves, and he can catch the ball now. Last year, he didn't catch the ball well. He's catching it now. He's made some great catches in preseason play. And Jerome Barkham, I can't believe he's the same guy. Now, I've covered that team for a long while, and Jerome Barkham is honestly catching the ball better than I've ever seen him.
Where do they have him now? Wide receiver, tight end?
Tight end, and he is making plays that no one can believe. And the Derek Gaffney on the other side.
He's from Florida.
He's replaced Richard Castor, and he's looking great.
What was Castor's problem? I mean, this guy was he could run fast, he could catch anything.
I think Castor was, I think New York was overwhelmed Castor.
See. Yeah.
He dropped passes and people booed him, and that was on his mind constantly.
Steve Serby normally covers the Jets for the New York Post, but the New York Post is on strike, and so is Steve. What's the story, Steve? What are you doing these days besides riding on a ferry boat?
That's about all I'm doing. We're still on strike. Monday, they're supposed to meet again, and maybe I'll have my job back within a week.
You're a beat man, really, then. You cover them daily, on a daily basis.
Yeah, this is the second year I've covered the Jets.
The new look, the New York Jets' new look, particularly that 3-4 defense is so successful against the run. How's it working?
Well, it's not so successful right now. It will be in a couple of years, but Walt Michaels just put it in this preseason with John Hennessy, a defensive end last year, as the roving linebacker, and it's going to take a while before it's effective.
How about the nose tackle? That's a big key in this type of defense.
It is. They got a guy there who they feel can lock up the middle, the center and the two guards, and Abdul Salam.
Abdul Salam, Kent State?
Kent State, right.
What's the story on him?
Well, he's 6'2", 6'3", 260. As Michael says, he's a hustling fool who just plain loves to play football. And
they say he's hard. You can skate on him. Is he that type of guy? Real mean, tough?
No, he's not. He's a very peaceful guy. As a matter of fact, he's a Muslim, and his name, Abdul Salam, means soldier of peace.
Right.
But on the football field, he's anything but that.
How do you look at tomorrow's ball game?
I like Miami to win. Strock's been around for 5 years. This is his 5th year. The Jets are about a year or two away. Miami just has too much experience. They're going to be able to run the ball against the Jets. Although the Jets are going to be a hard-hitting, exciting team, I look for Miami to win by 7 points.
7 points tomorrow?
But I wouldn't bet on it. I can't predict for beans.
Well, for beans, that's what you've been eating since you're on strike, huh?
You have to rub it in?
No, I hope you get the job back fast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, that was good. We were looking around for the average fan and fortunately ran into Dee Kelly, the average fan. You're not an average fan, are you?
No, Al. I've been a fan of the Jets for about 3 years. I'm a new fan, but I love the New York Jets.
Are you going to go to the ball game tomorrow?
Oh, I sure am. I'm going to be there yelling for those Jets. Oh, yeah.
Who's going to win the game?
The Jets.
All right, okay. Dee Dee, thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you, Al.
Appreciate it.
It was nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you, too. I mean that.
Thank you.
Frank Ramos, Director of Public Relations for the New York Jets. He has a Super Bowl ring, so he's been around a long time. Frank, you got anything to lose with this young ball club going out here today?
Well, I'll tell you, it's we're in an unusual situation. A couple of weeks ago, I think that people felt that if the Jets could be respectable and be competitive, that things would be fine. In other words, and show some improvement. They know that we have the toughest schedule in football. They didn't expect us to win a lot of games. All of a sudden this week, though, Bob Greasy goes down, he gets hurt, Burt Jones gets hurt. People say, wouldn't it be great if you guys really got into the thick of things and were into the race? And so it puts a little pressure on us that we didn't have, I think, say a week ago.
Miami has a rookie at cornerback, number 48, Gerald Small. You've got Wesley Walker, a 4'3", 40. And Todd's got that gun. Do you see a matchup there?
I tell you, we have a lot of respect for Gerald Small. He's an excellent athlete. I mean, the idea of it is he beat out Curtis Johnson. He's a good football player. The guy's been starting about 4 or 5 years for Miami. Miami used a lot of zones, so it's not always going to be one-on-one anyway. But Walker is our big threat. There's no doubts about it. Everybody knows that Todd and Walker had hooked up for 3 touchdowns in the preseason, even though neither one of them played that much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Frank. I appreciate it. Ed Playstead, fearless sports editor of the Hollywood Sun-Tattler. Ed, Bob Greasy's down, Don Strock's going. What are the Dolphins shot?
The Dolphins are going to win by 10-17 this afternoon.
Oh, yeah? Strock doesn't make that much of a difference, does it?
I don't think so. I think the Dolphins have too many horses out there. I think that they're going to put together because they're going to have to try harder without Greasy. And the Jets have a mediocre football team. They're young. They have a quarterback, and Todd, who's a good quarterback. But then they had a good quarterback in Joe Namath. And where did they finish? And anything.
They got Walt Michaels as a coach now. He's a disciplined type guy.
They've been talking about Walt Michaels ever since he came here. Everyone talks about Walt Michaels. Last year, they stunk up the National Football League with Walt Michaels. So I don't really think it makes any difference who's you know, there, the Jets still have a real crummy football team.
You know, the trouble with you, Ed, is you beat around the bush too much. I wish if you want to say something, just come right out and say it, for crying.
Well, I don't get my check from the commissioner every year, so I mean, therefore, you know, I'm not one of those network TV types.
All right, Greasy going down. Jerry Goldstein went down last night. Williams went down. Todd got hurt against Miami last year. Quarterbacks go all the time. Late hits. You read John Underwood's articles in the Sports Illustrated, brutality, all this type of thing. What's going to be done? I think every team is going to have to start using 2 quarterbacks. That's my own opinion. Now, what do you have to say?
Well, I just think that, you know, you have to stop the late hits. You have to make instead of just penalizing, you know, a 15-yard penalty, throw the guy out of the game, eject him, suspend him, you know, like they do in other sports. You can't risk anyone injury. I don't care if it's the quarterback or the third-string guard. I mean, a man should not have his career jeopardized because of some late hit. Now, these are professionals. These aren't high school boys or college kids. These are professional football players. And I just think, you know, they have to know the difference when they go in there and commit a late hit. Emotion is fine.
But the officials let him do it. I saw it last night.
Right. But the penalty, half the reason for this is that the officials in one case weren't even looking at the play. They followed the action someplace else. Quarterback went down. The other, in Williams' case, he actually lined up and then fell to the ground with his shoulder.
But a quarterback's always vulnerable. He's sitting back there. He's got his arm in the air.
Right.
He's vulnerable, and he can't defend himself like someone else.
Well, I think that's true in a lot of sports, but we have to just make a little different type of rules to protect them. But I think basically, if the officials got tough, if the NFL, if the commissioner said, hey, we are going to suspend you for a game, we're going to fine you $1,000, but right away you're out of the game without any questions asked for the first offense. The second offense, it's like in the North American Sissy League, North American Soccer League.
Oh, God.
There, you know, three times, and you're suspended for 2 or 3 games. Now, how many of these guys, if they thought that, all right, you get a 15-yard penalty, that's one thing. But if someone thought he was going to miss 2 or 3 games, how many head coaches would say, hey, we don't want any of this stuff? They'd police themselves.
All the experts picked the veteran Dolphin Ball Club to win this opener. But right from the start, the Jets were more aggressive and physical. Their linebackers took deep drops and forced errors. Football games are won at the line of scrimmage, and there can be no question that the Jets won the battle up front. Normally, Don Shula doesn't depend on too many trick plays, but with the aid of a Don Strock block, Delvin Williams had an electrifying 58-yard touchdown run. He had some fine downfield blocking. He takes it in. The Jets had good field position all afternoon, and they took advantage of it. They mixed their running, their passing, and Miami's defense just couldn't adjust. Everyone in the joint expected Todd to go to Walker. He didn't disappoint him. Shula gave first-round draft choice Guy Benjamin an opportunity to get his feet wet, and he responded by moving the ball club 79 yards to a touchdown. Final, Jets 33, Miami 20. There may be a tendency on the part of Dolphin fans to blame Miami's loss on the fact that Greasy's down, but that's just not the case. The Jets simply played very well, and Miami didn't.
You know, it was a team effort. I think everybody played badly. I thought Strock did a good job. You know, it could have been me in there throwing 2 interceptions, and the Jets played well, and we didn't. I don't, you know, I doubt if it made a difference who was in there playing. The outcome would have been any different.
The Jets are definitely a different ball club than they have been in the past. They're younger. It seems like Michaels has some discipline up there. They've gotten rid of the deadwood. They can run as well as pass. Do you think that
they were good last year? I don't think that had some effect on them. But I think the way we played, we couldn't have beaten many teams today. They played very well last year, and they played very well today. We had a tough time beating them last year both times.
Quarterbacks in a 16-game season, 16 games full tilt, that's awful rough. Do you think possibly that the backup quarterback should get more action and maybe two quarterbacks?
They do in preseason. The quarterbacks, you know, they all play. That's why you have preseason games to test out your rookies and to get your young guys playing. And that's why it's not only quarterbacks, but other positions too. Everybody gets hurt. It's a contact sport. And unfortunately, it happens to us and it happened to everybody else.
Goldstein went down last night. Williams too. This seems like it's happening more and more.
Linebackers and offensive linemen and defensive linemen go down too, but they just don't get the publicity, I think, that the quarterbacks do. It's a contact sport, and that's what happened.
Well, you were man enough to have an opinion, but it turned out to be the wrong one.
I have no statements to make until I consult with my attorney.
Yeah, you're going to need an attorney after this.
They
surprised you, didn't they?
One game does not make a season.
Surprised me, too.
Got 15 games to go, and yes, the Dolphins stunk out there today.
Played very bad.
I think everyone will admit that. But we have 15 more games to go. The Jets are still so-so football team.
Oh, now, come on. They played very well, Ed. They played well in all departments.
They played very well today, but over the long season, you're not going to see the New York Jets in the Super Bowl. You still may see the Dolphins in the Super Bowl.
Well, of course, to see the Jets, to have the Jets in the Super Bowl would be almost beyond belief. But the way they played today, they're a contender in the division, wouldn't you say?
But one game, sure they're a contender, but, you know, remember, this is still a division where you have New England in there, you have Baltimore, and you have Miami.
You will agree that the Jets are a contender.
The Jets are a contender, but I don't think they're going to be up there in the end because you still have Baltimore, you still have New England, and you still have Miami.
What surprised you about Miami? I mean, Baumhauer, is he hurt? He was so slow out there.
Well, you know, everything was bad. I don't think you break this down to
No, you can't
one.
break it down. I understand.
You know, the defense was bad. There was no pass rush. They got pushed all over the field. They had to play catch-up football. Everything they could possibly do went wrong. But you've seen this happen before, not only with Miami, but other teams. Everyone has a bad day. I've seen you play tennis. You've had terrible days.
Most of them, yeah.
You watch next week against Baltimore, you'll see a different team out there.
Yeah, Shula will bring him back. There's no question in my mind about that.
And Strzok is not that bad a quarterback.
No, he's not.
Bad in the first half, but he came around, I think, in the last half. I just think that this is one game where the Jets played above their heads, and they're going to win a few ball games this year, but they're certainly not going to be championship contenders. They're a young team. They got a good quarterback. They got some good receivers, but still, this is not a Baltimore, it's not a New England, it's not a Miami.
You know, Ed, I was a little surprised with a 17-point lead and 2 minutes to go, or 3 minutes to go, that Walt Michaels kept Todd in the ballgame. With all the things happening to these quarterbacks, now the players you talk to, they poo-poo all this stuff. They don't pay any attention to it. But the quarterbacks have been going down like flies around here.
But if you had a team the way Walt Michaels had last year, I mean, you want to protect any kind of a lead until the time runs out. I can understand his feeling.
17 points. He should have played Matt Robinson and that other kid from Tennessee. I think that you're going to have, it's a two-quarterback team from now on for a contender. I don't think a quarterback's going to make 16 games.
Well, I agree with you on that, but then we go back to our other premise that you have to protect. It's up to the officials to protect the quarterbacks.
We talked to George Cuneill, sports editor of Diario Las Americas, after the game. He had an excellent explanation for what happened. George, what's the story?
La verdad que lo que sucedió ahí fue que hoy nació una estrella. Esa estrella se llama Richard Todd.
Sí.
El muchacho jugó muy bien. Jugó por encima de lo que los Miami Dolphins pensaban que iba a jugar. Los Jets, defensivamente, habiendo sido los últimos en la defensa el año pasado, este año tienen una defensa muy fuerte. Yo creo que, sinceramente, estamos viendo aquí el nacimiento de un nuevo equipo fuerte en la división este del AFC. No hay dudas de que los Jets van a estar allí peleando hasta el final. Y los Miami Dolphins tendrán que regruparse otra vez y la semana que viene contra Baltimore van a tener que volver a formarse en la misma forma que estaban el año pasado y ver las cosas que hicieron mal este año, en el juego este, reagruparse y ir para el triunfo.
Gracias. I understood perfectly. Well, it's all over but the shouting. There's one fan who's just too happy to leave, and he's considered the New York Jets' #1 fan, Bob Scotty. Bob, you got to be happy.
That's not the word for it. Super happy.
When was the last time you had this thrill?
Try January 12th, 1969 Super Bowl.
Down in Miami, huh?
That was about the last happiest time, because now you can see a rebuilding, you can see a revamping of the whole organization. And since that Super Bowl, It hasn't been evident at all.
All right, well, you're an obvious fan, and everybody knows that you're for the Jets, but did you expect anything like what happened today?
No, not the final score. I thought if we won, and with Greasy out, we had a chance. I thought it would be 17-14.
What impressed you the most about the Jets?
Oh, they're hard-hitting. Super hard-hitting, aggressive. They never
Word's
quit.
discipline, too. They seem to have discipline they haven't
That's
had in the
Walt
last
Michaels.
5 or 6 years.
It's the Walt Michaels trade. He's started instilling it last year, and this year it's really taken hold. You can see by the age of the ball players, the experience they have, the Walt Michaels mold.
Some of these young ball players, they got rid of some dead wood around here. Some of these young ball players look terrific out there. That nose tackle, Salem, number 74 from Kent State.
Warrior of Peace.
Warrior of Peace. He's a hitter, isn't he?
He is.
And that Greg Buttle, can he play a little bit?
The best. That's
Who's
my
the meanest guy on the
favorite
team? Klecko?
Toss-up, Klecko Buttle.
And are you
Klecko
happy with
Buttle.
Are you happy with the performance of Richard Todd?
I love it.
How could they keep Namath around here all these years? Where are the experts supposed to know something? You New York fans are supposed to be so sophisticated and know exactly what's going on. Yet you keep a quarterback who, great as he was at one time, obviously finished. He was not mobile, didn't throw well, threw more interceptions and touchdown passes. Yet the fans kept coming out to every game and stood by him until somebody finally took this rookie and put him in there.
You just said the key words. The fans came out. Joe Namath had the charisma and the following.
Yeah.
75 it fell apart. And then 76 was the big disaster year for bringing Joe Namath back. He had some value still. And they still kept on with him. I would have gone with Todd that year all the way. And I think most fans would agree with that.
What do you think the bottom line for the Jets this year? How far can you guys go?
I think tops, we have a shot at 8 wins. Tops.
Hey, that's not very optimistic. That's a 50-50 500 ball with a 16-game schedule.
Right, that's being realistic.
But they just played one of the toughest teams in the division and beat them, all over the field.
Right, but the running game wasn't all that it should have or maybe could have been.
Golly, this surprises me. I thought they ran better than I've seen them run in 5 years.
No, because of the offensive line.
Well, still.
Now you're talking about
they used 4 or 5 backs, and they were all moving off the ball.
All right, but Harper is in there. You're going to get a big gainer. He can break it all the way.
Yeah.
None of the other backs can do that. They can plug along. They're very good. They're good.
At what they do, but you don't
right
have a big game-breaking back with the exception of Harper.
And he can't play every down.
George Usher and Steve Serby were happy to join us after the ball game. Guys, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think anything like this would happen?
Take it away, George.
No. Honestly, no.
You knew they were rebuilding.
I knew they were rebuilding, they're young, and I figured they'd play well, but they lose by 6 points. That's what I picked in my paper.
Yeah. They not only played well, they just were awesome in every department. They ran the ball well, they threw well, they played tough team defense, pursuit, hitting, everything.
Well, they felt they should have beaten the Dolphins at least once last year. And they also felt that they hadn't been respected by either Miami or any critic.
I'm one of them that didn't respect them, but I do now.
Maybe we didn't respect them enough either, but before the game, Walt Michaels brought up the subject of a Sports Illustrated article.
Yeah, you were talking to me about
in which it was predicted that the Jets would finish 1-15. And some of the guys subscribed to Sports Illustrated and knew about it, but others were stunned. And you saw how fired up they were when they went out.
They really were. I mean, this is something I haven't seen since they won the Super Bowl.
A funny thing, Al, in this game, last year, Wesley Walker went out for a deep pass, the same pattern that they used in this game. He went out and dropped the ball. It would have been a touchdown against Miami. They would have won the game probably. At least they only lost by a few points. This time, it was on a 1st and 11, and a 2nd and 11, and he caught the ball between 2 Miami defenders.
He beat Norris Thomas, and then he went. It was just a perfect catch, perfect throw.
He split the 2 defenders, caught the ball, and that's the ball he dropped last year, or the same pass back he dropped last year.
Of course, that is. How about Richard Todd, though?
Of course, Richard Todd makes a big difference, and Richard Todd has. You're talking about the Beathard thing, I guess.
Yeah, I wanted to bring
Bobby
that
Beathard is a pretty good friend of ours, and who is now the general manager of the Washington Redskins. Bobby was the personnel director for the Dolphins when Miami might have been looking for a quarterback a few years ago to come along behind Greasy. And I know Howard Schnellenberger used to coach at Alabama, and he liked Richard Todd, and what was this now that Bobby said? Bobby didn't care for him that much.
Beathard scouted Richard Todd at Alabama. And he says Richard Todd is not a pro quarterback. He says he's a wishbone quarterback. He does that very well, but he will never play in the pros because he can't handle the pro formations, pass in the pros, be a passing quarterback. He told Howard Cosell this, and of course Howard Cosell blasted it all over, and Richard Todd has had this in him ever since. And I think 2 weeks ago in camp, he said, we have something to prove here.
He probably thinks Bethard's still with the Dolphins.
So Richard Todd, after the game, Richard Todd said, this is the sweetest thing that ever happened. No bitterness or anything like that, but the sweetest thing that ever happened, he says, and we hope to keep doing this.
He just had great poise in there. And, you know, I think that playing consistently for the last 2 years, where Strock is, although a 5-year veteran, hasn't played that much. We went over this once before. And, you know, Strock had his first start today in some time, where Todd is a veteran, a proven veteran.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say he's a proven veteran.
After today.
I hate to disagree, but, well, maybe he came of age today, but he was showing signs in the preseason of, I think he's on the verge. There's no question about that. Last year against Oakland, he passed for 396 yards and 4 touchdowns, and that's when that signaled his arrival as an NFL quarterback. But, of course, today he had all kinds of protection, and do you notice how physically beaten up the Dolphins were?
Absolutely, their injuries. We don't know the extent of the injuries, and Shula didn't know. You know, this is too early to tell. But Larry Gordon is hurt in some way. Larry Little was hurt and had to be taken out. Baumhauer was hurt. Harris was hurt. Physically banged up. I hope that's all it is. But there were several injuries out there. Your offensive line was awesome.
Yeah.
The center, Fields. I'd never heard of him in my life.
And Fields was hurt a week ago, too, and he came back, and he didn't play in the Philadelphia game, which is his hometown, or near his hometown, and he was kind of disappointed. He didn't play much in that game.
Fields is a guy nobody expected to make it in this league. Jets have a lot of guys like that, but they're all hungry ball players, and they're all savage hitters, and these are Walt Michaels types of people.
Their cornerbacks were question marks, and both of them played outstanding.
Yeah, but again, it's a team concept. That's what the coaches tell us anyway. There was tremendous pressure put on by the Jet front three of Lawrence Pillars, Abdul Salam, and Joe Klecko. And that made things a lot easier for the linebackers and for the cornerbacks. The rookie, Bobby Jackson, I was very impressed with. He stayed with the best Dolphin receivers all day.
Hey, you guys, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
Our pleasure.
Wrap it up.
Well, don't get too upset. The Dolphins have a lot of character. They'll be back. Besides, there are 15 more games. I'll tell you one thing. Shula and his staff will do everything in their power to get this team back on the right track for Sunday's game at Baltimore. Join us next Monday night at 8 o'clock, and we'll bring you the story of the Colts game.